Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Alka Verma. I'm a research intern at ICS New Delhi. I extend a warm welcome to all to today's ICS seminar titled Exploring Rhetorical Expression of Political Leaders in Contemporary China. The seminar explores the uniqueness of political culture in contemporary China, focusing on how its leaders employ rhetorical element to sustain legitimacy and authority. Despite the Communist Party of China's complete control over the state apparatus, leaders from Mao Zedong to Xi Jinping have consistently relied on the rhetorical expressions as instrument of governance. These rhetorical forms are deeply rooted in historical and classical references while simultaneously using simple language to communicate abstract ideas while serve distinct function that shapes public perception and reinforce political legitimacy. The discussion will shed light on the characteristics and functions of these rhetorical strategies, illustrating how they continue to define China's political discourse. The speaker for today's seminar is Dr. Snehal Ajit Ulaman. He is an assistant professor at Department of Chinese, School of Languages and Literature, Sikkim University, Gangtok. Dr. Ullman received his doctoral degree in Chinese from Center for Chinese and Southeast Asian Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He was awarded the Chinese government MHRD Joint Scholarship twice to study in China and has published widely on Chinese language, culture, and politics. His research interests include Chinese civilization and governance, Chinese society, and Chinese language studies. He has co-edited India and China Economics and Soft Power Diplomacy in 2020 and co-authored Thousand Powerful Chinese Lexicon, Chinese, English, Hindi in 2017. The chair for today's seminar is Dr. Beam Subba. He is an assistant professor at the Department of Political Science, School of Social Sciences, University of Hyderabad. He is also an adjunct fellow at ICS and book review editor for China Report, published by Sage. Dr. Subba holds a PhD from Department of East Asian Studies, University of Delhi. His research interests include China's domestic politics, comparative East Asian studies, and international affairs. Before I hand over to chair, I request all the participants to kindly observe a few housekeeping guidelines. All the participants will remain muted during the presentation. Question may be posted in chat box along with your name and affiliation. Alternatively, you may use raise hand option during the interactive session, after which you will be called upon to unmute yourself. Thank you. Now I hand over to chair. Over to you, Dr. Subha.
Thank you, Alka, and thank you, Sheetal, and also I thank Institute of Chinese Studies for organizing this important Wednesday seminar topic on exploring rhetorical expressions of political leaders in contemporary China by Dr. Snehal. I think, and I definitely presume that this is a very important juncture where we really have to read and understand how Chinese leaders use these expressions in its political discourse, not only in its everyday functioning, but also governance. Increasingly, what Dr. Snail, Ajit Ulman is going to speak in his presentations. Now, as I say, like if we really have to see how China has, or how leaders in China use rhetorics, um, across its historical epochs to contemporary period, we see quite a departure, unlike in ancient China and today's China, that you have quite a distinct departures. I think in Snail, I hope you will also do justice to some of these departures, how these are distinct than before, although your presentation looks to the contemporary period. I think I will make some of these, my observations later after your presentation. So without much ado, I would request Nehal to make your intervention now. And you have, as the organizer said, you have 30 to 35 minutes for your presentations. Thank you. Yeah, looking forward.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, ICS, for this platform to present my views on Chinese political rhetoric. And this is a part of my PhD research, which I did from JNU. I'll first share my PPT. Is that fine? And I hope this is visible to everyone.
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yeah. Okay. So the title of my presentation is exploring the rhetorical expressions of political leaders in contemporary China. And as the chair expects me to also talk about different rhetorical expressions of the ancient period, uh, my focus has mainly been on the contemporary China. But you see that we see that there is a very huge, a correlation between the rhetorical culture or tradition of ancient China that has, in a way, being used in the contemporary times. So we will look into this also in this presentation. Uh, this is my these are the topics that I would be covering in the presentation. Firstly, I would introduce the topic of these rhetorics. What are political rhetoric? And there is a literature review, select readings that I want to show it over here. Talking about my objectives, the theoretical framework that I would like to discuss, and then coming to the discussion, where I would also be talking about what are the factors that make this Chinese political rhetoric a significant part in China's political culture, right? And then finally concluding remarks. Now, before starting with the main presentation, I would like to talk about certain ideas that I had um, before I embarked on this journey of studying political rhetoric. And the most, one there was a word which our teachers were teaching us was Sangataipiao, right? So they said that it's three represents. And then obviously I had to ask the teacher, why not three representatives? And the response was that these specific terms have to be translated in a different in a specific manner. Then the question that was going on in my head is, why does it have to be in a specific manner? So the questions that I asked myself was, who decides what translation is to be used for different Chinese terms, terminologies, right? And what kind of translation agencies are there in China, and are they all influenced by the Communist Party, right? And uh, and then I finally came to a juncture where I thought that, yeah, the political rhetorics can be a topic of research, although a very new topic for me. Uh, I tried to do as much as possible, and the question that I wanted to, the answers I wanted to seek was, how has CPC, the Communist Party of China, been able to have a control over the Chinese state apparatus, right? So how can the CPC control the Chinese government for such a long time? And uh, my angle to look at this is that uh, uh, if we take all things, one important significant part of China's political culture is the use of different catchphrases, different phrases, different slogans, which all can be termed as political rhetoric. So uh, let us discuss what these political rhetoric are, or in Chinese we can call them 政治修辞. Now, to start with, I wanted to quote from Gramsci. Uh, Ideas and opinions are not spontaneously born in each individual brain. They have had a center of formation or irradiation or of dissemination of persuasion, a group of men or a single individual even, which has developed them and presented them in the political form of current reality. This is what he has said. And if we look into this, there is some kind of a motive behind some idea that a leader may have, a person, individual person may have. And in order to achieve this persuasion, he does use certain kinds of terms because language is the for us humans, we use language to communicate our ideas and our thoughts, and therefore this becomes the primary instrument through which persuasion can be achieved. And therefore these political rhetoric are also very important. So what are political rhetoric, right? uh, Political rhetoric or Zhengzhi are is basically an umbrella term that I'm using for to incorporate all political slogans, rhetorical speech, figures of speech, right, catchphrases used by different leaders in China, right, and in their speeches to propagate different ideas, thoughts, their vision for China. These different rhetoric act as a bridge of communication between the leader and the masses, right? Uh, they reflect upon various social issues and different aspirations that the people have. And these rhetoric shoots are basically ornamental use of words in speeches and texts where the influence is being tried made by the speaker or the writer or over the listener or the reader. Okay, and this the message of the speaker and the writer has to be effectively conveyed to the listener. And this art of persuading others with oral or written text, written expressions, uh, is what is called as rhetoric. And in the political context, we can call this as political rhetoric, right? And the most important factor is that there are certain actions that take place at social, political, and individual levels, and these are all using rhetorics to explain those actions, to legitimize those actions. However, when we think of rhetoric, most of the times we think that these rhetorics are something used to, you can say, cheat someone. This rhetoric that has been used by the leader, he is just bluffing, he will not do anything. So why is the person, using those words? Uh, in China, we see that there's a political structure in such a way that the state apparatus is completely controlled by the CPC members, right? So the in such a scenario, we think about what is the actual use or role of these political rhetorics. They don't have elections at the top level. Then what is the need of having such a rhetoric when power is going to be uh, given to a member of the CPC? Uh, the 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 thing is that in the Chinese culture is built up in such a way that the people are often required to be given some kind of we can say uh, uh, some kind of uh, proof that the leader is working towards the goal that they are talking about. They are working for the betterment of the people, and uh, this rhetorical tradition that follows is completely different from the Western rhetorical tradition. Right. The Chinese rhetorical tradition has mainly focused upon non-eloquence. The Western rhetorical tradition talks about being very eloquent in the language. The language has to be flowery, but the Chinese say that it has to be very simple and easy to understand. Second part is that the Western rhetorical tradition focuses on argumentation, while the Chinese tradition says that argumentation can cause a lot of trouble, can cause a lot of chaos, and therefore is to not to be, is not recommended. Finally, the function of memory. Now, the Western rhetorical tradition doesn't talk about memory as such, but the Chinese tradition focuses a lot on memory, the use of memory. That means uh, what people remember is very important for everyone to achieve persuasion, right? And that is the focus when we think about political rhetoric. So I did some literature review and I got different works on rhetoric. One is from Lu Xing, where she also argues that traditional Chinese rhetorical components form a very important part of the contemporary Chinese political rhetoric, uh, apart from Marxist and other ideas, right? Uh, in According to Professor Clover, this the legitimizing of Chinese economic reforms was also a huge exercise of uh, trying to convince the masses that this is the path towards which China should be taking, and the use of rhetorics have also happened in such a manner. The another scholar, Xu Ruiqie, has also talked about the logical argument of rhetoric. Right. So, logical argument needs to be put through a rhetoric in order to be accepted by the masses. Right. And this idea, any kind of abstract idea, when placed through a proper logical argument, it will eventually yield some kind of success. And there's another important research by Lu Chunlong and Yan Ting. They basically highlight the core value components of core value system of China's political culture, where they basically talk about the use of the concepts like great unification, the preference for political order, orientation towards substance, and deference to authority and hierarchy. Now, uh, basically, he talks about how historical continuity in China has we see that there is a historical continuity in China, and uh, the Chinese people have their own specific set of ideas that have been established over centuries, right? So this is the value system that China has, and in order to understand China, we need to have this. We need to focus on the historical perspective rather than having looking at China through a Western angle or something. So, however, we find that these these research do not talk about different phrases or different slogans or different rhetoric, the language per se. They do not focus completely on the language that is being used, and therefore I tried to embark on this journey and with certain assumptions. First assumption that I am making here is politics and governance in China is inseparable from the use of political rhetoric. And then the use of political rhetoric has a significant impact on the Chinese people. more so due to the impact of age-old linguistic elements, culture, and tradition. So these are the assumptions which I am trying to test in this study. My objectives are highlighting the different characteristics of Chinese political rhetoric, uh, and the different functions that it has. It also has certain linguistic features. It also has certain functions from the cultural aspect, which I would be highlighting. Now, to analyze and understand how political rhetoric is used by the Chinese leaders with the aim of influencing the domestic as well as international politics is also one objective. Uh, the study also does a historical cultural analysis of political rhetoric and determining how it would impact the domestic population. And I have also compared different rhetoric of different leaders, uh, starting from 1949, New China, and how these political visions of the leaders have changed and how the different leaders have used the vision of the earlier leader to set up his own on the foundation of the earlier leaders' achievements. The next generation leaders have established their own thoughts and ideas. Um, in my study, I have used a theoretical framework which is based upon the different functions of China's rhetorical tradition given by Lu Xing. So, Lu Xing is a scholar from DePaul University in USA, and she has highlighted certain functions of rhetorical communication which have existed since ancient times, but uh, according to her, these functions also play a huge role in contemporary times, and therefore I decided that why not make this as a theoretical framework to understand the different rhetorics that are used in contemporary China. And there are these four functions that can be identified. The moral function, moral function emphasizes on the various virtuous deeds, moral values, or ethical behavior of people, or even the leaders. Epistemological function, it tries to demonstrate the interplay of symbols, different symbols, symbolic expressions, symbolic performances, and it uses the power of words and different catchphrases in shaping perception and reality. Now, dialectical function is reflected in the concept of dual possibilities and dual interpretations. And in order to explain certain concepts, this dialectical function is used. Now, psychological function is where the persuasion happens through different emotional parameters, like if the human motives, desires, fear, and other emotional parameters. Mm. Now, with this framework in mind, I would continue with my discussion. So, firstly, I want to talk about the functional role of rhetoric, which I just discussed in the previous slide. So, there are these functions. And if we see the moral function tries to, highlight different moral values that the people may already have, or the leader may try to put these ideas as a moral thing to be done in the current reality. And one such example which I want to give is of the usage of Quang Pan. Now, Quang Pan, you may get this word as a disc or something, but Quang Pan separately means empty your plates. Now, this was a word, this was a term used by Xi Jinping and his policy was of austerity measures, right? So he wanted to apply these austerity measures, and he started with a very different kind of a concept where once he came to power, he wanted people uh, and the party members as well as people to not waste food. And earlier, the CPC members used to have lavish parties, and in the meetings also they used to have so lavish functions. And also, Xi Jinping wanted this to stop, and he used this rhetoric of Huang Pan. Now, while this function was this word was rhetoric was used a lot of times, it basically failed to get any kind of attention. At least in the party, did some it got some success, but for the people per se, the Chinese culture is such that it cannot have a huge impact. If you are asking someone not to waste food, what about the cultural aspects that have been, influencing the Chinese mindset for such a long time, right? So when we talk about the New Year's celebration, the Chinese make lots and lots of dishes, and all these food items that are being prepared during these New Year's and different festivals have certain symbolic significance to them. For example, nian nian yo yu, right? So this expression is there where they make a dish of fish, and fish is considered because it has a similar pronunciation to yu, that means prosperity or wealth. So this symbolism is much more powerful than the moral function that this rhetoric wanted to play, the role that it wanted to play. And therefore the people have kind of ignored this kind of a rhetoric. Recently also, when there was a food crisis in China, this Guangpan was again used. But as we see that the ancient cultural impact is so huge that some we cannot determine exactly completely how much of an impact it would make. But seeing the cultural angle, we can say for sure that this won't do any kind of impact. Another one is the epistemological function, talking about China dream. Okay, now it can be translated as Chinese dream. This epistemological function is the use of words and phrases to kind of create ideas, to create narratives. And Chunko Meng was one such narrative that was floated by Xi Jinping. And when we talk about Chunko Meng, he first opened the floor to everyone, right? So in universities, in different conferences, people were asked what their dream was, and then by gathering this kind of a attraction, or when everyone was looking at what Chungkomang is, everyone was giving their own understanding of what Chungkomang is. Xi Jinping makes it very clear that for China, for the Communist Party of China, Chungkomang is the great rejuvenation of Chinese nation. So these ideas are being, given to the people, and how these uh, different, concepts are made simpler for the people to understand, is through the use of this Chungko Ma. Right? Now, dialectical function. Now, when Xi Jinping came to power, he also had certain plans, certain vision for China. And we see that he has used this word, 新时代中国特色社会主义. Now, as most of you may know that 中国特色社会主义 was also a catchphrase during the time of Deng Xiaoping, and it pointed to the different reforms that Deng Xiaoping had initiated. And by using this as a base, Xi Jinping has put his own thought into the uh, has put forward his own ideas of governance, and which he has termed as 新时代中国特色社会主义. Now, we may think that these ideas would be kind of based upon what Deng Xiaoping has been saying, but if we look closer, he has tried to use the same words 中国特色社会主义, but given them a different angle, and he has done things that are completely having a different approach than what Deng Xiaoping had. Deng Xiaoping was always of the opinion that China should not express openly about its power, and it should, uh, you know, take some time. It should not be very active in international this thing. We should not try to be the leaders of the world. However, Xi Jinping has right now is trying to promote the Chinese system to the world, is trying to promote OBOR, One Belt One Road, or the Belt and Road Initiative, and this is being done at a very wide scale, and we see the difference in the actual policy. Now, coming to the fourth one is the psychological function, where the use of emotions. Now, here the use of emotion that he has used is fear. He has used the term "ta hu pai ying." Now, "ta hu" is "ta lao hu," and "pai chang ying." That means beat the tiger and swat the fly. Now, why was this used? This is a part of this term is a part has been used when Xi Jinping was actively, trying to get rid of corruption in the party and in the system. And he has used this term to indicate that there are certain tigers. Tigers are the big hotshots or the big leaders, and Sanging are the flies are the small leaders or the small officers. Now, you just not it is important that not just the small people or the flies or the small officers are punished for corruption, but also the big leaders like Chow Yun Kang. Chow Yun Kang was the first person to be put behind bars for corruption, and many other military leaders also followed, and this was a big game changer. And how this psychological function works, we will also see through a comparison between Hu Jintao and Xi Jinping. So Hu Jintao also understood that there was corruption, the problem of corruption in the government, in the party. However, Hu Jintao had suggested a, a, a plan of Pa Rung Pa Chi. Now, Pa Rung Pa Chi is 8 do's and 8 don'ts. Now, this kind of expression was basically appealing to the moral values of the party members, where they were asked not to do certain things, avoid doing certain things. Though, if you see the wordings of Parung Parsha, they are please do not do this, please do not do that. There was total of 16 items in this. But if you see Xi Jinping's wordings, it is like he wants to beat up the tiger and even swat the fly. That means he wants to kill off all the corrupt people in the party. And we see that emotionally, I think this has created a lot of influence for his or support, even support for his anti-corruption, uh, you know, uh, uh, policy. And here we see that the target audience is not just the common people. If we see through all these rhetoric, it is also different party members, the party members that are there, and also the members of the armed forces. So the target audience just are not just the people, the common people, but everyone else in the party or related to the party. Now, I want to come to the linguistic characteristics that these rhetoric have. After talking these the functional role that rhetoric plays, uh, we come to the linguistic characteristics, and here we find that uh, while having to promote a certain ideological thought or certain idea that the leader has, he uses different kinds of figurative speech or metaphors, symbolic metaphors. He uses different popular expressions, and also different kinds of uh, quotations from classical texts and poetry. So let us look at all these one by one. If China, the Chinese leaders talk about 合作供应. 合作供应 is cooperation and win-win. So this has been used in almost all speeches that the Chinese leaders use in their diplomatic interactions. And in one such speech by Xi Jinping, we see in 2013 in Mexico, he has used the phrase "lu yao zhi ma li, ri jiu jian ren xin." Now, this basically means that the longer the road, right, we come to know about the power of the horse, and the longer the relationship is maintained, we know what the person thinks or what the intentions of a person are. Now, this is a kind of a dialectical function that is playing its part over here, and the the influence that Herzog Kunging has is kind of increased in a sense, and every time these different uh, you know policies are being put forward to the people, these leaders use different kinds of expressions from different cultural context or language. The Chinese language is very you can say very rich in all these uh, phrases and idioms. So this is a trend that is being followed, and it creates a huge influence on the masses. Right now, we'll talk about a part later, but let me first complete all these phrases. Another one is "人类命运共同体." Now, Xi Jinping has also greatly talked about uh, this creating a shared destiny for all humankind. And he, in one of his speeches in 2017 at Geneva, he's saying, 宇宙只有一个地球，人类共有一个家园。 Now, this is also a very catchy phrase where he is trying to say that uh, China's idea of having a common destiny for whole humankind is the way forward, and this serves the epistemological function of rhetoric. Okay, he is creating a worldview that the Chinese system or Chinese cultural view is what will save the entire world from the conflict that we can see in the world right now. There are different popular expressions also, like uh, while trying to talk about the different economic reforms that are required in world organizations, he's using the phrase 小智治事，大智治治. So it means that it's while solving a problem, solving just one problem is not wisdom, but the wisdom lies in solving or curing the entire system. Now, this also plays a dialectical function. This was used in 2016 G20 summit speech. And what dialectical function does it play? It is using two different aspects. So, 小知, 知识. So we should not be focusing upon just one matter. Rather, we should try to reform the entire system. Xi Jinping has also used certain quotes from classical texts and poetry. So, in obviously, He Ping Fa Chan was put forward by Hu Jintao during his time, and the Chinese leaders from Deng Xiaoping have always focused upon the concept of 睦邻友好关系, especially Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao. And Xi Jinping also followed the same path uh, in the early days, where he also, in his ICWS speech in India in 2014, he has used the term 基于利而利人，基于达而大人. It is taken from Analects, and also this also has a dialectical function. Now, he's trying to promote that uh, for China, India is a big partner, and obviously at that particular point in time, China wanted India to join the OBOR, or the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, trying to persuade India to join this OBOR, he is saying that China wants to basically get established or become a superpower. And therefore, China will actually walk hand in hand with India so that India also can become a power. And with that, China will also be a great power. And therefore, 基于达而大人. So this says that China will achieve this if it will help India, and therefore they want to work jointly with India. This is what Xi Jinping wanted to say. Now, Xi Jinping also has his own ideas on governance, and while explaining those ideas to the people of China, he is using another phrase from Tao Te Ching, 治大国如烹小鱼. Now, the governing a country is like cooking a small fish, is what are the words, the translation. And here also he is trying to uh, say that uh, having, governing such a huge country like China is not a piece of cake, right? So these are the different things that he wants to uh, express through his views on governance. And today, as we know that Xi Jinping's ideas on governance are a topic of a big topic of debate, and uh, you know of they are being talked about everywhere. And even China's democracy, the Chinese version of democracy, is also being promoted widely. This is part of the same thing. Another expression is regarding Ta Laohu and Pai Changming. We already saw that it also has a psychological function in my earlier slide. Uh, but while in various different speeches, Xi Jinping has used different expressions from classical texts, and one such is from this San Kuo Chi, where he is saying is 刮骨疗毒, 壮士断腕. So where it says that you have to scrape the bone in order to cure the poison, and cut off the arm in order to save the body, right? So arm has to be cut out. Now, this also has a psychological function. Now, and all these words are used from the um, ancient texts. And what happens when we use certain expressions from history or from the culturally closed I'm sorry where people are very close to the language in certain way, and when these expressions are used, people feel that these concepts are very easy to understand, easy to memorize. So the ideas get to them in a very focused manner. They are also placed upon relevant markers are being used. There is a wide use of numerals, as we can see in many different uh, plans of the, you can say the phrases that have been used by the leaders, and these have now become a part of the plans that China promotes. Uh, right. So if we take example of Itai Ilu, Belt and Road Initiative. Earlier, it used to be OBOR. Now it has been renamed as Belt and Road Initiative. We'll talk about the translation part also in this. So we see the numerals E over here. Okay, and then we also have four comprehensives: 4个全面, five principles of peaceful coexistence: 和平共处无相原则. Oh, when we make use the numerals, we understand that there are certain five points to be noted down, and you do not have to repeat them again and again. The four cardinal principles used by Deng Xiaoping, three represents used by Jiang Zemin, four modernizations, three people's principles. This has come down from a very long time that people are being persuaded through the use of numbers. Now, coming to translation of certain, the translation, the nuances in translation of certain
Stephen,
work. Yes.
you are coming. You have 2 minutes now.
Okay. Sorry, I'll then wind up, right? So if we see the translation part, we see the use of peaceful rise, right? So it came as a response to the uh, uh, response to China threat theory, and earlier expression that was used was 和平崛起. But there were again debates that peace cannot come together with rise, and therefore the term was entirely changed. It became 和平发展. And this is what even the Chinese have been talking about, that we need to express certain ideas in a very specific manner, so as to get accepted in the minds of people. Now, we see that the Chinese are largely impacted by this because of the certain reasons, but the international community actually thinks of all these as empty rhetoric. Now, why is that? This is because of the Western worldview, or you can say the individual perceptions about certain things, and the cultural and historical approach that you can think about in the term in China's case. So the Chinese system can be better understood through historical approach rather than the Western worldview. This is what Lu Chunglung and Yan Ting are talking about. And therefore, these rhetorics actually have a great influence on the Chinese people, but not on the international community. Now, traditional Chinese rhetorical components and usage also dominate the policy outlook in present day China, as we have seen, along with the Marxist and other ideas. Right? In the pursuit of this modernization, there China is trying to create its own modern identity, and what it is doing is not just directly copying something from the West. It is trying to change the concepts that would suit China better, and the rhetorical usages are just one such example, right? So the Marxist ideology is being expressed through the angle, through the use of certain rhetorical traditions that are ancient to China and have a lot of influence. And that also creates a huge influence for the Communist Party. And this tradition, as I have already talked about eloquence, devaluing argumentation, and stressing upon the use of memory. So we see historical analogies being a huge and important part of rhetorical influence. Right? We see it through China Dream. So in China Dream, while talking about China Dream, Xi Jinping talks about the Belt and Road Initiative. He talks about the Maritime Silk Route. And while talking Maritime Silk Route, he talks about the ancient Chinese Silk Route. He's trying to revive that history. We also see what is Chinese democracy, 中国的民主, a white paper that was published in 2021. Right. So these are certain notable rhetorics of different CPC leaders. I wanted to talk more about this, but due to the time limit, I'll just briefly talk about these. Mao Zedong was talking about class struggle, and therefore his wordings were like Wei Fu Puren. That means uh, getting rich is not a good thing, is not a benevolent thing. But you see Deng Xiaoping, when he talks about 贫穷不是社会主义，更不是共产主义，知福光荣。Now, he's saying that poverty is not socialism, and obviously it's not communism, and getting rich is actually glorious. So you see the difference. However, we see that Deng Xiaoping never said that Mao is wrong. He, in fact, said that Mao was a great practitionist. He used to practice things based upon experience, and therefore we should also, more and he has used all these expressions in his speeches, and he's saying that we should follow his path of socialism, and we have to create our own path, our own experiences, which he called as 中国特色社会主义. And same is with Hu Jintao and Xi Jinping, which I already talked about regarding the anti-corruption campaign, where Hu Jintao's Hu Jintao's expressions were very moderate. However, Xi Jinping was very strongly putting his views forward of, killing of any kind of, corrupt elements in the party. Right. So I think maybe I'll
Yes.
come to the conclusion that these rhetoric play a very important role. Expressions play a very important role in governance and politics. And the long-term vision of a member may not be realized during the lifetime of the leader. However, the next generation leader capitalizes upon it, and he places his own vision forward, and that becomes a victory for not the leader but the CPC as a whole. Right? So the memory function is a very strong, memory plays a very strong role in these rhetoric. This is the bibliography. And this finally, I want to end with this picture, which I think maybe someone from the audience may also ask where this has been taken, or maybe guess where this has been taken. Does anyone know this? Sir, Bhim sir?
Is it Natullah?
Yes, it's Nathula. And you see that on the border, I'm sorry that this is not a picture that I have taken. I took it from a video. But when I went there, I wasn't allowed to take pictures. So you're not allowed to take pictures over there. But this is a picture of a Chinese building that is just where the tourists go. And you see, it's written Ting Tang Zhi Hui, 能达升降, 作风良好. What are these expressions? These are also directed towards the military personnels, right? So it is only if you listen to the party or if you follow the party's command, you can win the war. And your actions would be your actions have to be very good in terms of your behavior and all. So these are certain expressions, and they are written in huge, uh, on buildings. They are being put up over there, and that is how Chinese leaders try to create that kind of influence. So thank you for your patience. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Snehal, for your very elaborate and very interesting presentation. And in your presentation, we could see like how you have not only touched on the public use of Chinese politicians' use of language, but also rhetorics and shaping of discourses in China vis-a-vis its political ideology and also its culture, and so to say. In your presentation, we could also see how, how different functions of these rhetorics have played, have come out. However, in the in the different leaders that you have engaged with, we also see how different functional role of these rhetorics have manifested in different levels. Like if I may have to make an observation, like in Xi Jinping's period, you could see more of psychological function of rhetorics, because you see, catching the, swatting the flies and catching the, tigers and all. You could
Beating
see
the tigers, yeah.
so you have these more psychological, whereas Hu Jintao, Jiang Zemin, and Tang Xiaoping, you could see more of epistemological and as well as very dialectical way of dealing with things. But not to mention with Mao and Xi Jinping, definitely we see more of psychological functions of political rhetorics also playing there. So that's a very interesting take on how you could also see. And also in your presentation, we could see the way of approaching and studying Chinese politics vis-a-vis using methods. And as I also teach here, I always take that as Chinese political, historical political science as a method to engage in studying China and Chinese politics. And so there are many, I think I'm sure that there are other questions also from the audience. I think before I can come later, but the floor is open for questions. And if there are any questions, Alka, in the
Uh,
chat, if not, people can raise your hands and ask the
yes,
speaker directly. Yeah, thank you. Once again, Snail, thank you very for your presentation.
yes, sir. I can see one question from Shyans Mohanty. He asks, how can the rhetoric of mutual cooperation and China's advocacy for multipolar world order be reconciled with its apparent strategic objective in Asia to establish a unipolar regional hierarchy centered on Beijing's supremacy? In other words, how does China's discourse on global multipolarity emphasize peaceful coexistence and shared development function along its effort to assert unchallenged dominance within Asia?
Okay, so basically, maybe I am not sure whether I would be making sense of this, but there are two types of audiences. Okay, one is the domestic audience, right, where Xi Jinping is telling the people that China is, I will, China is a great country. It has always been great, and based on that, right now we will be a dominating force in Asia. This is what maybe he's saying. And what this actually does is try to bring out the nationalistic sentiments in the people, in the domestic population, domestic the citizens, right? But for the international, this thing, China doesn't want a complete chaotic neighborhood, right? It cannot go on having wars with everyone or something, having conflict with Taiwan. And obviously, it has a long term, you can say, uh, uh, objective of having a unified China. But then it cannot go on war with Taiwan, right? So while giving out these expressions in the international context, it talks about the multipolar world. It talks about 合作. It talks about 供应. Okay. Now, this is what happens when if we try to analyze these things from a different perspective. We feel that yes, China is trying to dominate, and yes, why won't it try to? Each country tries to do that, right? So for us who have a different take on a rhetorical expression or something, would take it very differently. So this is what I feel from a rhetorical perspective. However, international politics is a huge field actually, and many different perspectives can be put forward with regard to this. I think to tell you the truth, I am not a student of international studies. I took this topic as a part of language, and this was my small attempt to maybe just highlight that this language also does play a role. And maybe your question would be much better answered by maybe Bhim sir, uh, uh, if uh, if at all this has to be taken up for discussion, sir. If please let me know if I am right in this regard.
Yeah. Shriyans, actually, we can engage with that. However, we can ask others to, raise your hand and engage with the speaker. Yeah, I think people are still shy. I think still lost in their thoughts. So,
Oh, yes.
but I have a question with regard to one of your last slides that you said. I think that was a penultimate slide. You said Chinese democracy.
Yeah.
Could you say why? the Minzu. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why? Why?
So I feel that Xi Jinping is trying to make a mark in Chinese political history by putting forward his own ideas of governance, right? And here we see that there was a white paper that was published with regard to China's democracy, Chungko the Minchu. It was published by the State Council of China, the government of China, and it talks about different aspects of democratic values that are there in the Chinese system. They say that Chinese system is not the democracy of the West. Rather, it's a democratic system which completely, goes according to the aspirations of the people. And it also talks about different types of democracy that exist, and like the direct elections at the local level, indirect elections at the top level. But then China's democracy is having much more merit in them. So I remember there was a speaker named Eric Lee, and he was also talking about how China's system, how the China's CPC's organization department works, and what it does is you see the performance of a leader, and if you have good performance, then that person is promoted to the higher levels of power by the party organization department. And this person would then take up the task of governing a huge area, you can say. And Xi Jinping has also been like, he is the son of Xi Chongxun, a leader, Mao's colleague, you can say, or uh, but he gave up his post of secretary, and then he became a part of the party. He joined the party. He worked at the village level, then gradually came to the province level, and then was promoted to become the Politburo member. And now we see that he's at the top position. Right. So all leaders have to go through this process. No one can directly come up and become a leader in just one night or something. Right. So this is the process through which they go, and that creates a kind of legitimacy. So none of the people would think that the leader is inexperienced. They would definitely support him because the people do not directly elect the representative at the top levels, right? So they need to be, consoled. They need to be told that this is a very good leader, and how that would happen is due to the CV, the 30 years of the work that Xi Jinping has done for him to become the supreme leader, right?
Thank you, Snehal. We have
Yeah.
Professor Patricia and Professor Mohanty also. May I request Professor Patricia to go first? Ma'am, good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. That was a simply wonderful and enlightening talk. I must say I enjoyed every minute and wished we could have stretched it out even further. I had a few questions.
Yes.
One is that, you talked about the words and the slogans and so on, but what about the physical execution of this? What about the performance, the intonation, the gestures, the breaks, and so on? Did you watch, for instance, performances of some of these speeches as well as look at the texts, which you did so very well. That was one question. Secondly, you deal with a lot of, you're especially focused on phrases or what one could call slogans that are there in the discipline, in the delivery, as though these were rhetoric per se. They're rhetorical slogans, yes. But did you look at the structure of a whole discourse, or at least a short one? So you picked out the phrases, but what about where they belong, even if they were the center? How do they work up to them? What is the sort of structure of in which they're encased? That was another one. And thirdly, what strikes me as quite interesting compared to what one sees around one in India, of course, you spoke a lot about the sort of the classical, the mythical, the textual derivatives of a lot of these rhetorical phrases. But one doesn't feel that they were, if you like, what one might call religious. They're not calling upon anything faith-based, as we understand it in India, or for that matter, in the United States of America, where there is a lot of discussion about faith, getting people worked up according to faith, rather than reason or classical derivative or anything like that. So these were three questions I had about really the delivery and the real life performances and where the phrases came from, apart from the wonderful interpretation you've given of the phrases.
Thank you, ma'am. May I answer or?
You can go.
Yeah. Okay. So with regard to the first question about the performances, basically, if we talk about the symbolic expressions that were done, I couldn't do this in my slide because of the time limit. However, we see that during Mao era, there used to be this, we call this as Taj Pao, huge, big character posters, right? So pasted everywhere. And Mao's idea of the class struggle and that of the proletariat was highly ingrained in the minds of the people through these kind of texts that were pasted in every community, the place where people used to be. And this was a source of influence. Now, talking about the feedback, actually, my research in my the PhD research, I tried to work on this. There was one problem about the feedback was that I couldn't get a lot of material from China because of the any kind of feedback that is being talked about in Chinese blogs and all, it basically gets deleted. I couldn't access most of it. But what I could see is that we see that during Hu Jintao's time, there were a lot of protests that were going on. And we can understand that Hu Jintao's harmonious society, He Xie Shehui, was basically a response to that, right? So the feedback was from the rising protests that He Xie Shehui was also a Confucian idea that was used during the warring states period when there was chaos in the society. And Hu Jintao is talking about He Xie Shehui. He's trying to tell to the people that his plan of having a scientific outlook on development, which was absent before Hu Jintao's regime, is the way to solve all these issues. Now, the issues that were the social issues, because China is now $1 trillion economy, and there are many environmental social issues that are occurring in China. So he puts forward this idea that during that ancient time also there were so many problems, and they could solve it through peaceful means. And therefore, we also need to follow the party's way, party's path in order to solve these issues. And therefore, he puts forward this Hashisha Hoy. So you see, there is a kind of feedback that the leaders take from the people and uh, try to change their rhetoric in some or the other way. But for the source of all these protests was from the green books that used to come. But nowadays I'm not able to get those books from China. So in Xi Jinping's time, we see that these books aren't been published. But maybe is that we'll need to look further into this. But maybe there are no protests, or yes, there may be protests, but we are unable to get the whole picture out of it. So this, and regarding the second part, ma'am, I haven't looked into this perspective actually, so maybe I won't be able to answer it much clearly. Maybe I can try to work on this part of the you were talking about the structural base, right? So um, maybe I can work on this aspect. And when it comes to India, we say that we have a faith-based, right, rhetorical usage. Yes, this is what the people want, and this is what the leaders give it to them. In China, all this influence comes from the cultural aspects like Confucianism, Taoism, and the over the years this has become a very uh, it carries a huge influence on the society, and people do readily accept these ideas. And I think that is what creates influence. So we can say in a way that Confucianism is a powerful force of faith, maybe. Yes, maybe, ma'am, you can in fact guide us on this. I am a very a junior. You have read a lot on China, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Snehal. Professor Mohanty, you can come over, sir.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the whole presentation.
Thanks.
And already Patricia's questions preempted me in many ways, and your answers already. Now, one question I have is, are these communication strategies or they are mobilization strategies? These rhetorical formulations, they clarify concepts. The four-sum framework that you gave, that was very interesting. And if they're communication strategies, are they? You said that they're directed at not only common people but also others and so on. But are they products of movements? In other words, for example, in the Indian freedom struggle and later on, the political movements, even contemporary social movements, have produced such formulations. And same in Chinese revolution as well as other campaigns. So my two-part question is, what are they? I mean, are they just communication strategies or mobilization strategies or both? That is one. And the other part is that are the products of movements, or they are very carefully constructed formulations to advance a new agenda. Always a new formulation has a new agenda. And it opens up the agenda, in each case, in all the four periods that you saw. That was my brief comment, if you would like to answer.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So as for the, if we think about the policy, right, if I want to frame it in this way, there is a plan that the leader may have, right? So he has a vision, and in order to realize this vision, he has a plan, and that plan can be, we can call it as a policy. Now, when this policy is to be put up toward, presented to the people, uh, rhetoric does play a role, yes. So it is like you are trying to gain the support of the masses, support of the party. So rhetoric plays a role at the level of intention. So this, what I call, is an intention. The intention of the leader is to put forward this plan and to execute it successfully. And there is a next step that occurs, is at the part of at the point of action. So when the action is being taken, so in order to mobilize the party workers, the all the people in that direction, again rhetoric can be used in a specific way. Yes, so it is not just a propaganda per se, it is also to get things done in a system where there we know that there's a leader who is going to be there for so many years, for 10 years or maybe more than that. We have no choice over that. But then will the system work? Yes. So what the leader is trying to do is he puts different rhetorics at different levels. At the level of intention, where he is proposing the policy or the idea, his actions, where he is trying to execute the idea, and also if at all there are different results, different feedback that comes out, which I talked in the earlier question by Patricia ma'am. So the result is taken into action, and the rhetoric or the formulations are changed in such a way that they may be acceptable to the people. So they might reform those again and again, just as I was talking about He Ping Chue Qi. Now, He Ping Chue Qi was a response to China, the China threat theory. And when people from China itself started saying that your formulation is a bit weird, because you're talking about peace and you're talking about rise, which simultaneously should not be existing. So it creates a confusion in the mind of people in the international community. So rather than saying peaceful rise, you would rather say peaceful development. And that has been a policy that China is following for till date, I guess. So hopefully I answer this question. And
So these are, communication strategies,
yes,
basically.
yes. And
Clarifying policies. Yeah.
yes, right. And
Thank you. Thank you.
in
Yeah.
terms of freedom movement, sir, I think Indian freedom movement. But if we talk about the Indian context, maybe the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is a very good example of using the rhetoric, or so uh, Modi is trying to put symbolic expressions where he's going on the roads and sweeping the floors, right? Sweeping the roads. So that creates a change in the society where people try to follow a leader using those expressions, right? So they are, you can say, manifested in form of actions, not exactly words but actions. So, but
No,
for
Swachh
the
Bharat Abhiyan, that is a
yes.
formulation.
Yeah, it's a formulation. But if we see the policy, if we read the policy document, it was about creating toilets. It was never about cleaning up
True.
India.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, rhetoric.
Yes,
Okay,
rhetoric.
carry on.
Yeah.
Go to the next question. Thank
Thank
you.
you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. May I request
Sir, I think Mr. Rapai Malikal has question. He can unmute himself and ask question.
Rapai, sir, you can go ahead. Oh,
Hello, thank you, Subha, and thank you, Sneha. I
Thank you,
thought
sir.
when I put asked for the unmute, I think after that, Professor Mohanty and Patricia ma'am clarified a lot of things. So I will not get back into those things. I will request Nagel to continue with this effort, because this is a very useful tool to understanding the China, where it takes, where the politics is. So you don't bother for the international studies section now.
Right.
But if you look at all around how Maha is followed by Trump, and how he is using the rhetoric or the terms and the words which we earlier didn't understood, or we interpreted in a different way. So that is in every politics or every party it is there. And you talked about Green Book, but you may not get Green Book, but you can follow two things. One is, if you look at various websites or the press, there are, including the Ranman Pao and other uh, journals, you get the people's reaction. It is openly given, but they may not be coming in the websites. But if you follow some of the Chinese social media sites, you will get a lot of information how the people are reacting to it, and what is the implications for that. I think that way, you this earlier, I think Subha may be remembering. I think I remember once Hemant and who else discussed about the same, that their formulation might have been different. What are the terms used in the current, the discussions in China and the press reportings? So I think this you have followed a lot of, you have accessed a lot of things. So continue to work on it. It will be very useful. Later on, you can use it in whatever form you want. But we need somebody to follow this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
May I request you to read some of the questions?
Yes, sir. So next question is from Avni Abha. She is an research intern at ICS. She asked, historically, many Chinese people saw Indians as stooges of British imperialism who harassed and tortured them, especially in treaty ports and the opium trade. In today's China, do leaders or ordinary people still use these memories in public speeches or conversation to link current foreign relations with past injustices?
Right. So I think maybe you're talking about the video that came out recently, the Punjabi using a turban and all. So uh, see, if we look at official discourse, the official diplomatic channels, China has not tried to counter India with the use of what we call as a wolf warrior diplomacy, right? So where we actually the officially they are attacking the system, like they are doing with US. Maybe they say that the system is completely non-functional, right? So this is what they try to project. But in terms of India, they are not doing so, at least at the official level. But you see that whenever certain things crop up between India and China, controversial things, we see that the social media is filled up with such comments from the people. Uh, obviously, they are not official things, and you may not even see them later on. You won't be able to save them or something, because after some time these things are also deleted. So I hope this answers your question. They do use it, but not the official channels, right?
So, sir, there's another question by Briju Banerjee. He is an research intern at ICS. He asks, specifically, since you mentioned Gramsci and his belief that ideas have a material basis in reality, how would one explain the shift in rhetoric of leaders since Mao's time? Since rhetoric also plays a legitimizing function, do you see rhetoric as a means of the party to build a hegemonic rule through consent based on the shared values, or are they misleading as a means of understanding Chinese politics?
Right. So yes, actually, there is a huge shift from Mao's time. So Mao's focus was on class struggle, while After Mao, because of the adverse impact of the Cultural Revolution, it was necessary for Deng Xiaoping to propose the reforms, right, in China. And his formulations have actually changed. If you see, as I had talked about in the second last slide, just before the conclusion, there were different rhetorics used by Deng Xiaoping. In one, he was talking about "Hey Mao, Pai Mao, Chua Chu Lao Shu Chi Shi Hao Mao." So no matter whether the cat is black or white, what is important that it catches mice, right? So he used this formulation from a general, I forgot his name, but he used this formulation in order to explain that it is now the time for China to focus on economic reforms, and this is what he did. So the formulations have also changed, the vision has also changed, the objective that the party wants to achieve has changed, yes. But if you are saying that this is a way of trying to mislead the masses of China, I think that won't be true in a way. As we understand in our situation, it's like when we have some kind of election, people talk this and that, but they may not fulfill the promises that they make. But in China, it's a completely different thing. In China, the people don't have a choice to elect the top leader, right? So for them, it's not about getting votes from the people. It's more about having social stability. And the Chinese rhetorical tradition does not talk about being misleading. So there's a classical text which by Chuangzi, where he's talking about that the rhetorics should be very simple, that are used to influence people. He is talking about these rhetorics. I don't have a quote right now, but I can show it to you if at all, maybe some other time, or maybe over email I can share it with you, where he's talking about these rhetorics, and he's saying that these should be very simple and true. They should not be false claims to be made, and that is what is the tradition of Chinese this thing. So when Deng Xiaoping was talking about reforms, and he's talking about the 中国特色社会主义, uh, do you think that his vision was already realized before his death? I think China became a $1 trillion economy only after the death of Deng Xiaoping. So you see, his vision may have actually been realized only after he passed away, right? So there is a long-term vision, long-term plan that they try to put forward. I think that might answer your question.
Yeah, we still have at least 3 minutes or so. Okay, if anybody is interested, please go ahead to raise your hand and ask a question.
I'm not professor, I'm assistant professor.
Somebody has raised a hand or something? Oh, just to support what Snehal has said to Abbas' question. I think in many of the present museums in China do have some of these old replicas of Indians who were, used as police by in some of the museums here. Last year when I was in Shanghai, I visited some of the museums where a lot of Indians were being, were used for those. So you definitely not at the official level, but you at the general, uh, places, you could really see how Indians are being portrayed there. Definitely there. So there is one question from Mr. Pratap Ranjan.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you might like
Uh,
to.
yes, sir. So he asked, comparing the rhetorical style of Mao Zedong Hu Jintao and Xi Jinping in promoting democracy? What are the main differences, and how do these differences affect the public's perception of China's democratic development?
Uh, okay. Let me make it clear. When we talk about China's democracy, this has been the recent thing under Xi Jinping's regime, where he is trying to portray the Chinese system as a better alternative to the Western democracy. So Chinese democracy, like none of them are promoting democracy per se. They are not promoting the Western democracy. They are trying to portray the Chinese system as a much better alternative to the Western democratic system or the electoral democracies that we see in the world. So maybe uh, obviously there have the styles that are used by Mao Zedong and Hu Jintao, Xi Jinping have been very different, and all these have one thing in common is that the conditions that Mao's period had in the society were different from the conditions during Hu Jintao's time. So these formulations are no doubt different, and the public perception would also be different, right? So maybe that answers your question, but maybe China's democratic development, we cannot directly say something like China is having democracy or something, but it's a Chinese system, a Chinese style of governance, we can say. It's called as consultative democracy or authoritative democracy, or we can give different names to that, but it's not the democracy, the electoral democracy we see in the West, right? I hope this answers your question.
So organizers, can we call it off for a day? If we have conclusions.
Yes, so thank you, Chair. With this, we come to an end of today's seminar. We thanks Dr. Snehal Ajitulaman and Dr. Bhim Subha for gracing today's seminar with their presence and for giving us precious time. We also thank the audience for joining us today. We would like to invite you to the upcoming Wednesday seminar. Further information regarding the event can be found on ICS website. You may also subscribe to our newsletter for regular updates. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sneha, and
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much. Thank you very much for having me here. And it was a great opportunity for me. So thank you very much. Thank you, ma'am, for your feedback.